In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what is the scariest, creepiest or most unsettling experience of your life? I'm assuming this was sleep paralysis, but it left me shaken for hours. I was at my boyfriend's place one afternoon and decided to take a nap on his bed. I wake up and try to get up, but I can't move my body. I see him sitting at his computer and call his name. He doesn't turn around or even react. As I blink, I'm suddenly waking up again in the same position on his bed and still not being able to move easily. I'm freaking out at this point, crying and screaming for my boyfriend to help me, not understanding why he was ignoring me. Slowly, with all my strength, I pull myself up, and the second I stand up, I'm waking up again lying on the bed. This happened over and over again, with me getting further and further, calling to my boyfriend but him never reacting. After literally at least 10 times of struggling and keeping on waking up over and over again, I get outside his house. At which point I actually wake up, shaking and crying and having aches in my muscles as if they were cramping. Needless to say, I never made a sound in my sleep, and my boyfriend couldn't tell there was anything wrong. It fucked me up for hours, since I didn't really know what had happened and was very confused. Edit, spelling. Backstory. Live in a house about 100 feet off the road and have a barn in the backyard about 150 to 175 feet from the back of the house. The house faces north and the road runs east and west. We have woods to our west and south and open fields to the north and east. The barn is right at the edge of the woods. We have a light on the east side and a brighter one to the north over the door. About a month ago, I was getting ready for bed one night and happened to look out the window toward the barn. There was a tall, gangly white figure like 7 feet tall that went around from the south side of the barn and turned west to go to the woods, and it looked at both lights on the outside of the barn as it went, so I didn't get a good look at its face. Kinda glad I didn't. I still haven't went outside at night since then. If it ever decided to come at me, I've got a full magazine of buck it can have. You know what the worst part is? Both the living room windows are like 6 feet wide and have no curtains. I'm just glad my room has roller shades. Edit, I live just south of Saginaw, me. I have heard from locals about weird things like this. There were coal mines in the immediate area around 1900, and before that it was swamp. They drained it, and it was also Native American land before it got settled 140 years ago. I was about 4 or 5 at the time. Whenever the infantile amnesia ended, my parents divorced when I was 2 and I was visiting my father and uncle, call him Mike, who at the time were roommates. One night my dad was cooking dinner while my uncle and I were playing in the living room. I don't remember the context that lead up to it, but he ended up roughhousing with me and, jokingly, biting my arm, but just hard enough to pinch and make it sting. Me being the kid I was, instantly ran to the kitchen while my dad was cutting the chicken or steak, or whatever. I put on my best puppy dog eyes to make it extra convincing. He instantly raised his knife, exclaiming, "What?" Knife raised, he sped, walked into the living room, and I, panicked and confused as a child could be, followed hesitantly. The next few moments will haunt me for the rest of my life. Before anyone could question it or even react, my dad slashed him right down his face. Almost instantly Mike grabbed his face, wailing, shrieking almost. He stood up and shoved my dad to the side, dead sprint to the bathroom and turned on the sink, I guessed to wash the blood off. At this point I've lost it. I sprinted back to the kitchen crying, not sure what to do or how to react. I don't know why, but all I did was sit in the kitchen chair in the fetal position while I cried. I heard the bathroom sink turn off, and almost instantly the same ghastly shriek from before was booming through the house again. In shock at this point and not even thinking, I stood and shuffled my way to the archway that led into the hallway where I could see the bathroom. Like a bat out of hell, Mike sprints out, face covered in blood, screaming, "Oh my God." The words still ring in my head today. I can still hear the fear and dread in his voice. The next minute or so is fuzzy, but I managed to make it to my bed, where I cried, hoping I wasn't next. Knowing that I couldn't do anything, even if I was, I felt defeated. I hear my bedroom door creak open and I didn't know what was going to happen, just waiting in anticipation. What I didn't expect, however, was Mike to walk in while wiping the blood from his face. Laughing, he licked it and told me it was ketchup, and I was floored. My dad walked in a few seconds later, laughing and simultaneously hugging me, knowing the trauma he just inflicted. I don't know how or when they managed to work out such an elaborate and perfectly executed prank. Looking back, it was the best burn I've ever seen, and it was on me nonetheless. But it's cool. I'm cool, I think. I had many weird experiences growing up, and while I've grown skeptical in my old age, some things have stuck with me that I cannot explain. When I was around 10, we moved to a small farming town about an hour away from where I grew up. The house I grew up in had a number of strange things happen inside of it, and while I've detailed a few of them before, the stuff I saw in my new house was unsettling. The house was moved to as an older farmhouse and belonged to a retired farmer. Weird layout, and pretty old-fashioned but functional. The important detail is our kitchen opened up into a small den-type room that connected the master bedroom, main living room and small office. From the kitchen table, you could see into the living room through a French door that was mostly glass. One morning I was eating breakfast with my brother and mom, and I was facing the living room. My mom was facing me. It was around 9 AM and bright outside, so I could clearly see into the room as it had a huge bay window and was east-facing. As I was eating, I saw what looked like a small hunched-over shadow person scurry across the room and go out of my sight as it passed the door. It happened so fast that I must have been noticeably startled, and my mom questioned why I looked scared. I told her what I saw, and she admitted to having seen it a few times. Over the next month I saw it 2 more times. Another time in the living room, and the last time I saw it was outside. Waiting for the bus, on a bright sunny winter day. My brother and I were waiting, and as the bus got closer to us, I saw this black mass scurry from behind the bus and move across the road only to disappear into the ditch. This was maybe about 50 to 70 meters away, but these are empty fields on a bright morning. I didn't mistake it for anything else, and there was nowhere for it to disappear to if it was an animal. My mom eventually put a cross in the living room and asked whatever was there to leave us in peace and stop making itself known. A number of other little weird things continued to occur in that house, but I did not see any more shadow people. So one night, my boyfriend and I had just gotten done some shopping, and came home as usual. We lived in an old home converted to 3 separate apartments that were pretty roomy. The apartment was built in the late 40s and had issues. Our landlord was such a jerk, never repaired or cared for anything, and long story short, the sidewalk by our front door had several crazy bushes, more like huge weeds, to the right of it. It was really dark and I was fumbling around with the keys, having forgotten to turn the outside light on. My boyfriend had gone around the other side of the house to take out some garbage or something, when from the direction of the bushes I hear something, with a man's voice whisper, "Come here." The messed up thing was that it whispered so quietly that it had to have been right next to me, yet there was no breath, no actual physical presence. I freaked the fuck out, dropped my keys and the groceries and bolted to where I thought my boyfriend was. We bumped into each other and he asked me what was up. I told him. He laughed it off, saying I had to be imagining things. I wasn't drunk, wasn't taking anything, everything was completely normal. I have never had a paranormal experience, ever, and so I knew that this was for real. My boyfriend walked over to our entrance and checked everything out. Nothing. He turns around and freezes, facing my neighbor's house. Then he runs, yells at me to get into my car. Thankfully I keep a spare key in my purse, so we got the fuck out of there. We go to a local 7-Eleven and sit in the parking lot. He proceeds to tell me that he saw a pair of what seemed like animal eyes behind my neighbor's chain link fence. She didn't have any animals. What's more, he said that the eyes rose from knee level to shoulder level, and belonged to a black figure. Long story longer, we go home after calming down, get the keys off the ground and a couple bags I dropped, go search the house. Nothing. Everything was fine and nothing ever came of anything that we had seen. We aren't an excitable couple, I mean, we are open-minded but we don't exaggerate. That actually happened. I didn't see the eyes, I just heard the thing's voice. People don't have eye shine like animals. What do you guys think? This was years ago, nothing has happened since. We moved into a new house though, months later.